Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Clara. I'm 39 years old. And I think I've ruined my daughter's trust in me forever. It's strange, isn't it? You spend years building a life, and then one quiet sentence can detonate everything you thought was solid. I keep replaying it in my head, how Mia looked at me after he told her. The way her mouth trembled before she shut it tight, like locking away words she didn't want to say. He told our daughter he regrets not leaving me sooner. Those were her words when she finally called me. Except they weren't really hers. They were his. And now she won't even reply to my texts. But I should start at the beginning. When I first met Eric, I was 24. I remember that version of myself so vividly soft, hopeful, like everything was still ahead of me. He was older by 7 years, already with a steady job, a condo, a confidence I found magnetic. Eric made me feel chosen, desired, the kind of desire that made my skin hum. Our early days were full of those long, slow glances across restaurant tables, his hand grazing my thigh under white linens, the thrill of sneaking home early from work just to collapse into bed like two magnets. His lips always found mine before words did. We whispered things we barely dared believe, forever, always, you're mine. I used to feel so safe in his arms, like he was a harbor I could finally rest in after years of drifting. But slowly, like a slow leak in a balloon, the air started to slip out. Not all at once, never that easy. There were small things at first. The way he pulled away a second too soon from a kiss. How his hand would rest on my back at dinner parties like a placeholder rather than an invitation. I would reach for his hand under the covers, and sometimes he'd squeeze back. Sometimes he wouldn't. The sex changed too. Less frequent. Less urgent. Sometimes when we made love, it felt like he was going through the motions, like he was checking something off a list. Other times, I could feel his body there, but his mind was elsewhere, distant, unreachable. And then the guilt would gnaw at me. Am I not enough? Am I too much? We filled the silence with parenting. Mia became our shared project. The laughter and chaos of raising her papered over the growing cracks between us. School projects, soccer practice, piano lessons, it all kept us busy enough to avoid noticing how little we touched, how rare our private glances had become. Even when we cuddled on the couch, his arm around my shoulders started to feel more like an obligation than intimacy. His body stiff, his eyes on the television, while I leaned into him, pretending we were still connected. The warmth that used to radiate between us felt cooler, thinner, like standing near a fire that was burning out. I told myself this was normal. Marriage changes. People settle. Life gets complicated. But deep down, I was starving for something I couldn't quite name. The moment I knew, really knew, that something had shifted beyond repair came one morning last fall. Mia had stayed over at a friend's house. I woke early, sunlight pooling across our bedroom floor, the sheets tangled between us. Eric stirred beside me, his back turned. I scooted closer, wrapping my arm around his waist, pressing my cheek to his back like I used to. He flinched. Not dramatically, just enough. A subtle tightening of his shoulders. Like my touch startled him, or worse, annoyed him. Sorry, I whispered, pulling back, suddenly aware of how foreign my own husband's skin had become to me. It's fine, he mumbled, but didn't turn around. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, hearing the hum of distance between us. That morning, as the sunlight crawled up the walls, I realized I was lying next to a man who no longer reached for me. And maybe hadn't for a long time. That was when the fear started to take root. And I think, in some ways, it's been growing ever since. Eric's always been the kind of man who believes in action. He was a paramedic when we met, and even now, after all these years, he carries that same urgent, fix-it energy into every part of his life. If something's broken, you patch it up. If someone's bleeding, you stop it. You don't sit there talking about how the blood makes you feel. You just act. That's how he loves too. In gestures. When he sensed something was wrong after that morning, the morning he flinched, he started trying harder. In his own way. He'd come home with takeout from my favorite Thai place. He'd fill my car with gas without saying anything. He'd brush my hair off my shoulder and kiss my neck while I was making dinner. But each touch felt heavier than it used to, like he was performing intimacy instead of offering it. His hands would rest on my hips when I was chopping vegetables, and instead of melting into his touch like I used to, I found myself tensing, my breath hitching for the wrong reasons. "Hey, babe," he'd murmur, pressing his lips behind my ear. And I would nod, force a small smile, but inside, I'd feel hollow. Because what I wanted, what I needed, was for him to sit across from me, look me in the eye, and ask, "How are you really?" I wanted him to notice the way I was shrinking, the way I was folding into myself more every day, trying to hold together a marriage that no longer felt like home. But Eric doesn't like to talk about feelings. Never has. Growing up in a family of hard-edged men, where vulnerability was weakness, made him tough, decisive, capable, but emotionally distant. I remember one night vividly. It plays on a loop sometimes when I lie awake. We were getting ready for bed. He stood behind me while I brushed my teeth, his hands circling my waist like he used to when we were younger. His touch was familiar, but my body stiffened involuntarily. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, his breath warm on my neck. I wanted so badly to tell him, "No, I'm not okay. I feel like you don't see me anymore. I feel alone next to you. I feel like you touch my body, but never my heart." But instead I said, "Yeah, just tired." He nodded, as if that explained everything, and led me to bed. When he reached for me that night, I let him. I always let him. And afterward, when he pulled me close, I laid awake, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, feeling like I was wrapped in obligation instead of love. It wasn't that I didn't want him. I did. But I wanted all of him, his heart, his attention, his presence. Not just his hands moving across my skin like a choreographed routine. The next morning, over coffee, I tried again. "Eric, do you ever feel like we've kind of lost us?" I asked carefully, stirring cream into my mug, watching the spiral of white swirl into brown. He frowned, setting down his newspaper. "What do you mean?" "I thought things were good lately." "I've been trying, Clara." "I know," I whispered, my throat tightening. "I see that." "I do. But sometimes it feels like you're trying to fix something without really knowing what's broken." His brow creased. "I don't get it. I bring you dinner, I help around the house, I'm home on time." I cut him off gently. "I don't need more things done. I need you. I need to feel connected again." He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "Clara, I'm not good at this emotional stuff. You know that. I'm doing my best." And there it was again. The wall. The one I couldn't climb over no matter how many times I reached for him. We sat there in silence, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space where understanding should have been. I sipped my coffee and wondered how two people who once couldn't stop touching each other had ended up unable to really reach each other at all. It got harder to pretend. The more Eric tried to bridge the distance with his usual ways, his hands, his kisses, the light slap on my ass as I bent to load the dishwasher, the more I found myself shrinking from him. Not because I didn't want him. God, I wanted to want him. But everything fell off, like a key jammed into the wrong lock. One evening, after Mia left for her friend's house, he came up behind me while I was folding laundry in our bedroom. His arms slipped around my waist, and his chin rested on my shoulder. "Hey," he murmured into my ear, voice low and familiar. His breath was warm against my skin, and for a second, my body almost softened. I closed my eyes, willing myself to feel the way I used to. His hands began to drift lower, fingers splaying over my hips, his touch light but insistent. I stiffened. It was automatic now, like muscle memory. He felt it immediately. "What's wrong?" he whispered, his hands pausing. "Nothing." I tried to keep my voice neutral, steady. "Just tired." "You're always tired lately." His voice held a faint edge now, wrapped in frustration. "I have a lot on my mind, Eric." I pulled away gently, turning toward him, forcing a small smile. "It's not you." He frowned, searching my face like he was looking for something just out of reach. "It feels like it's me." I didn't know what to say to that. Because it was him, and it wasn't him. It was us. It was the growing space between the versions of ourselves we used to be and who we'd become. "Can we just, not tonight?" I finally said softly. He exhaled and stepped back, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, sure, of course." But I saw it in his eyes, the disappointment, the confusion, the sadness he wouldn't dare put into words. And that only made my chest tighten with guilt. Later, we lay in bed, the silence between us heavy. Eric reached for me again, this time more tentative. His hand brushed my shoulder, then slid down my arm, fingertips tracing slow, familiar paths along my skin. I swallowed hard, trying to focus on his touch, trying to summon the heat I used to feel so easily. But inside, I recoiled. Not from him exactly, but from what the touch meant. From where I knew he wanted it to go. His lips found my neck, soft and deliberate. "I miss you," he whispered. The words pierced me because I missed him too. But not like this. I closed my eyes, my body caught in the strange tug-of-war between longing and resentment. His hand slid to my waist, inching beneath my shirt. I placed my hand gently over his, stilling him. "Eric, not tonight. Please." He froze for a moment, then withdrew, rolling onto his back with a quiet sigh. We laid there, side by side, staring at the ceiling as the clock ticked on the nightstand. The darkness felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. And in my head, the words circled like a mantra I couldn't escape. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It was supposed to be a nice evening. Eric had made reservations at La Fontana, our old anniversary spot from when Mia was little. The dim lighting, the warm glow of candles on every table, the soft clinking of wine glasses, it was all designed to feel intimate, familiar. Like us. Except we weren't us anymore. He pulled out my chair for me like he used to. His hand grazed my shoulder as I sat down, and for a moment, I almost let myself relax into the old rhythm. "You look beautiful, Clara," he said softly, his eyes warm and searching. "Thank you." I smiled. At least I think I smiled, but it felt brittle, like the kind of smile you practice in the mirror. We ordered wine. The waiter disappeared. The quiet stretched between us. Eric cleared his throat, trying to fill the space. "So, Mia's talking about colleges now. Can you believe it? Our little girl." I nodded. "Yeah, she's growing up fast." He smiled at me, but his smile wavered as he studied my face. "You've been distant lately." There it was. The edge beneath the words again. "I know," I said quietly, lowering my gaze. "Is it work? Is it me?" "It's not just one thing," I whispered. My throat tightened. "I don't know how to explain it, Eric." "Try." His voice was gentle but firm. "Please." I closed my eyes for a second, trying to steady my breathing. The words were there, clawing at the back of my throat, but I was so tired of circling this conversation. Tired of trying to translate feelings he never seemed able to fully hear. "I feel alone," I finally said, my voice breaking. "Even when we're together. I feel like you only see me when you want something. Like I'm a box you check. Dinner? Check. Sex? Check. Groceries? Check." My voice was shaking now, rising despite my efforts to control it. "But you never really see me anymore, Eric. Not who I am now." His face flushed. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" I shot back, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "You think bringing home pad thai and filling up my gas tank fixes everything. You think kissing my neck makes up for years of me feeling invisible. My voice cracked again, drawing a few glances from nearby tables. Clara, lower your voice, he said in a sharp whisper, glancing around nervously. But I couldn't stop. The pressure that had been building for months, years, was erupting. You flinch when I touch you in the morning. I hissed, my eyes stinging. You pull away from my kisses without even noticing. And then you come to me at night like sex is a cure-all. And I let you, because it's easier than having this fight. But I'm empty, Eric. I'm so goddamn empty. He sat back, his face a mixture of hurt and confusion. I don't know what you want from me, Clara. I've been trying. You never tell me what you need. You just shut down. Because every time I try, you act like I'm speaking a language you don't understand. The tears broke free now, hot and humiliating as they rolled down my cheeks. I want to feel chosen again. I want to feel like you want me, not just the version of me that serves your life. Eric's jaw tensed, his knuckles white around his wine glass. But he said nothing. The waiter arrived then, awkwardly setting down our plates, the heavy silence between us thick and bitter. I wiped my tears quickly, forcing a tight smile at the poor man before he scurried away. For the rest of the meal, we barely spoke. The air between us was heavy with everything unsaid. That night, when we got home, Eric slept in the guest room. He didn't say why. He didn't have to. I sat on the edge of our bed, my face buried in my hands, my chest heaving with silent sobs. Why did I say all that? I thought, shame curling inside me like smoke. Why did I explode like that? And beneath the guilt, another voice whispered something far more terrifying, because it was the truth. The days after the restaurant were filled with silence. Not angry silence. Not the kind where doors slam and voices rise. Just stillness. Eric moved through the house like a man made of glass, careful, distant, fragile. He left for work earlier than usual, came home later. We spoke about Mia when we had to. Groceries, schedules, logistics. But nothing real, nothing us. At night, he stayed in the guest room. The first few nights, I expected him to come back, to slip into bed beside me like nothing had happened. But he didn't. I missed him. God, I missed him. I missed the weight of his body beside mine, the steady rhythm of his breathing as he fell asleep, the way his hand would sometimes drift across the sheets to find mine in the dark. I even missed the way he mumbled in his sleep, incoherent and soft, like secrets spoken to no one. But every time I thought about reaching out, something held me back. Pride, fear, shame. I had thrown my pain at him like a weapon that night in the restaurant, and now I didn't know how to gather the pieces back up. One Saturday morning, I watched him from the kitchen window as he cleaned out the gutters. His movements were mechanical, methodical. I saw the slump in his shoulders, the tightness in his jaw. He wasn't angry. He was sad. And it broke me in a way I didn't expect. Because for all the ways I had felt unseen, I had forgotten to see him too. Eric wasn't made of stone. He carried his own disappointments, his own quiet grief for what we had lost. And maybe he didn't have the words for it. Maybe he never would. But that didn't mean he didn't feel it. Mia barely noticed the shift. Teenagers live in their own orbits. She floated in and out of the house with her music, her friends, her plans. Occasionally, she'd glance between us, sensing the undercurrent, but not asking questions. Not yet. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we had gotten so far apart. I remembered how, years ago, Eric would press his forehead against mine after we made love, whispering, "You're my home, Clara." And I had believed it. But now it felt like we were both standing outside that home, locked out, unsure who lost the key. The guilt gnawed at me. For not saying something sooner. For lashing out. For letting the distance grow unchecked for so long. I ached to feel his arms around me again, to smell his skin, to sink into him like I used to. But how do you reach for someone after you've hurt them? After you've exposed all the ugly, Unspoken truths neither of you were ready to face? I sat at the kitchen table one night, tracing the rim of my wine glass, listening to the faint sounds of the TV from the guest room. My chest felt tight, like there wasn't enough air in the house. You can't live like this, I told myself. I had two choices. I could keep waiting, hoping time would heal what words had broken. Or I could walk away and spare us both the slow erosion of pretending. Or I could risk reaching for him one more time. I closed my eyes, swallowing the lump in my throat, and whispered into the empty room, "Tomorrow. I'll talk to him tomorrow." The next evening, I found him sitting alone in the living room, the soft blue glow of the television casting shadows across his face. He looked up when I entered, but didn't speak. I sat down on the edge of the couch, a few feet away from him. My hands twisted together in my lap, cold and clammy. "Eric," I started softly, my voice trembling. "I want to talk." He muted the TV, setting the remote aside, his eyes weary but open. "Waiting. I've been thinking," I said, my throat tightening. "About everything. About us." He nodded slowly but didn't speak. "I know I hurt you at the restaurant." My voice cracked and I swallowed hard. "I shouldn't have dumped everything on you like that. I should have said something long before it built up that way." Eric's eyes softened, but his shoulders remained tense. I wasn't. Blindsided. "Clara," he finally said, his voice rough. "I knew you were pulling away. I just didn't know how to reach you anymore." A long silence stretched between us. "I miss you," I whispered. "I miss how we used to be. But I don't know if we can find our way back." He exhaled sharply, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes. I wonder if we held on too long, if we were trying to save something that was already slipping away." His words stung sharp, clean, honest. "And then, the other day," he continued, his voice breaking slightly, "I was talking to Mia. She was upset about something, I don't even remember what started it, and I said something I shouldn't have. My breath caught in my chest. I told her I regretted not leaving sooner." The words hung in the air like smoke. Tears welled instantly in my eyes, hot and blinding. "You told her." He rubbed his hands over his face. "It just slipped out. I didn't mean it like that." I was angry, frustrated. I wanted to protect her from seeing us like this. "But now she won't even reply to my texts," I whispered. "You made me the villain." Eric's face crumpled, and for the first time in weeks, he reached for me. His hand rested over mine, hesitant, warm. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Clara," he said, voice hoarse. "But maybe we already hurt each other too much." We sat there, hands lightly touching, not quite holding. The intimacy of it nearly broke me. I leaned my head against his shoulder, and for a moment, we sat like we used to. Quiet. Close. Familiar. But underneath, we both knew the truth. Somewhere along the way, we had stopped being each other's home. And now, neither of us knew how to rebuild it. You know, people talk about heartbreak like it's this big, dramatic thing. Screaming matches. Slamming doors. Affairs. Explosions. But that's not how it was for me. For us, it was quieter. Like watching something beautiful decay in slow motion. Like realizing one morning that the person lying next to you has become a stranger you love. Eric moved out 3 months ago. It wasn't a big fight. No ultimatums. We just sat down one Sunday morning and both finally admitted what we had been too afraid to say. We weren't happy anymore. And we hadn't been for a long time. He said, "I think we lost the thread somewhere, Clara. I don't know how to get it back." And all I could say was, "I know." I thought I'd feel relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out the center of me and left the shell behind. Mia blamed me at first. She wouldn't answer my calls, my texts. I think hearing Eric say those words, he regrets not leaving me sooner, made it easy for her to believe I was the problem. Maybe I was. In some ways. But we've started talking again. Slowly, carefully, like two people stepping onto thin ice. She's angry and confused, but she's my daughter. And I know she loves me. I have to believe love wins out in the end, even if it takes time. What I've learned, what no one really tells you, is that losing a marriage isn't always about losing love. Sometimes the love stays, but it becomes something heavy, tired, a weight you carry because you're afraid of what happens if you set it down. Desire fades differently. In the beginning, I wanted Eric with this fierce, electric hunger, the kind that makes your skin ache just to be near them. I thought that was enough, that if you built a life together, the rest would stay intact. But desire needs more than love. It needs to feel seen, to feel chosen, even after the years have worn you both down. To know that when they touch you, it's not out of duty or habit, it's because they still crave you. And I needed more than he knew how to give. That's the part that hurts the most. Because I know he loved me. In his way. But his way wasn't enough for me anymore. And I didn't know how to say that without breaking something we both tried so hard to protect. Now, on nights when the house is quiet, I sit in bed and think about all the little moments that chipped away at us. The quiet mornings where his back was turned. The kisses that ended too soon. The touches that felt like obligations instead of invitations. The nights I cried silently beside him, too ashamed to say, I feel so alone with you. We both kept waiting for the other person to save us. But no one came. If I've learned anything, it's this. Love isn't enough without attention. Without presence. Without choosing each other again and again, even when life tries to dull the edges. I don't hate Eric. I never will. He was my first home. My first real love. And for a long time, we were enough for each other. But sometimes, even people who love each other deeply drift so far apart that the space between them becomes unlivable. And that's where we ended. Not with a bang. Not with betrayal. But with distance. Quiet, steady, and final. And that's how I lost my husband. And for a while, I lost my daughter too. And yet, somehow, I'm still here. Still standing. Still learning how to live inside my own skin again. Maybe that's the hardest part. But maybe it's also the beginning.